heard people say you don't need a huge amount of money to start mini importation, and honestly, I agree with that. But there's one question I think we need to ask before anybody tells you how much you need to start. How much of that money is actually available for the products? Because if you have 50,000 naira, that doesn't necessarily mean you have 50,000 naira to spend on products. You still have to think about getting those products from the supplier to you, right? And depending on how you are importing, there may be shipping, there may be delivery, there may be payments or other business costs that is involved. So today, I want us to forget about the unrealistic promise for a moment and let us actually sit down and ask, if I have 50,000 naira today, what can I realistically do with it if I want to start importing products from China? And by the end of this video, I promise you, you will understand not just whether 50,000 naira can work, but how I would approach it if it were my own money. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is IMPORTATION, and on this channel, I talk about everything DIY beauty, business, and practical ways to build something for yourself. And today, we are bringing importation back. It has actually been a while since I made an importation video, but I wanted to come back with something that I think is much more useful than simply telling you go to China, buy cheap products and sell them for more, because that's not the difficult part. Finding a product online is easy. The real question is, can you buy that product, get it into Nigeria at a reasonable cost, sell it at a price people are willing to pay, and still have money left over as profit? That's the part I want us to focus on today. And I'm using 50,000 naira because I think it is a much more useful amount to discuss for someone who is genuinely trying to start small. Not everybody has 500,000 naira or 1 million naira sitting around to experiment with a new business. But at the same time, I don't want to make you believe that 50,000 naira can do everything. So let us be realistic. So first thing first, what does starting with 500,000 actually mean? Let's say you tell me, Oluwaseun, I have 50,000 naira. I want to start mini importation. My first question wouldn't be, what products do you want to buy? My first question is definitely going to be, is that your total business capital? Because there is a difference between having 50,000 naira available and having 50,000 naira available purely for inventory. Let's say you have 50,000 naira in total. If you immediately spend 45,000 naira buying products, you have 5,000 naira left, right? Now your goods arrive and you discover that you need money for something else. Maybe local delivery, maybe packaging, maybe another cost you didn't even anticipate. Maybe you need money to actually market that product, and now you're stuck, right? Your products are sitting with you, but the money you need to move the business forward is gone. So this is the first mindset I want you to have. Your capital is not the same thing as your inventory budget. Your total capital is the money available to run the entire experiment. And your inventory budget is only the portion you're comfortable putting into the product. That is a very important discussion. So how would I look at 50,000 naira? If I had 50,000 naira, I would not start by asking, what is the cheapest thing I can find on 1688 or Pindodo or any Chinese market? That is actually one of the wrong questions. I would ask, what products can I test with the money that I have? That is the difference. I mean, there is a difference between the two. Imagine if I find a product for 500 naira. My first thought should not be, I can buy 100 pieces because 500 naira multiplied by 100 is 50,000 naira. That is not how I would approach it, because I have not even considered everything else. Instead, I would think, how many units can I comfortably test without putting all my money into stock? And then, what will each unit actually cost me after all of the relevant expenses? This is what we call landed costs. Your landed cost is essentially what the product costs you by the time you are actually ready to sell it. So your calculation shouldn't stop at supplier price is equal to 500 naira. You should go further. Product cost plus relevant shipping and sourcing cost plus any applicable fees, plus the cost involved in getting the product ready for sale. Then you compare the total with the price you believe your customers are realistically willing to pay. That is where you start seeing whether the product makes business sense. Let's make this very simple. Imagine I find a hot product that costs the equivalent of 1,000 naira per unit from my supplier. I don't immediately say, I'll sell this for 3,000, so I'm making 2,000 profit. No, I don't know my profits yet. I need to know what it costs to get that product to me, right? So let's say purely for illustration purpose that after all the relevant costs associated with that small order, my effective cost comes to 1,600 per unit. And if I sell it for 3,000, my gross difference is 3,000 minus 1,600. That is 1,400 per unit before considering other selling expenses. Now compare that with another product. Maybe product B costs 800 naira from the supplier, but because it is bulky or expensive to ship, the effective cost by the time it reaches you becomes 2,000 naira. If you sell that one for 2,500, you've only created a 500 naira difference before other selling costs, right? So which product is actually better? Product B was cheaper at the supplier, but product A may be the better business. This is why I don't want you to fall in love with supplier prices. The prices that you see on Chinese marketplace is only one part of the calculation. And shipping rates can vary significantly according to the carrier, the route, the weight, the volume, and service arrangement. So you need a current quote for your actual shipment rather than copying someone else's old figure. So what would I actually do with 50,000 naira? If I had 50,000 and this was my first experiment, I would keep it very simple. I would choose one product, one clear target customer, a small test quantity, and one main selling channel. I wouldn't try to import earrings, bags, phone cases, hair accessory, and kitchen gadgets all at once. Why? Because if 5 different things are inside your package and one of them sells while 4 don't, you haven't learned much. But if you test one product and it sells quickly, you've learned something. You now have evidence. You can reorder, you can improve your marketing, you can test another variation and gradually increase the amount you're putting into inventory. That's how I'd rather grow. That makes sense, right? So test, learn, reinvest, and scale. Not buy everything, hope everything sells. That makes sense, right? Now let's talk about the kind of products I would look for. If my capital is small, I would pay particular attention to products that are lightweight, small enough not to create unnecessary shipping problems. I will not buy fragile goods. I will not buy goods that are easily damaged. I'm going to buy goods that are easy to demonstrate and something with an obvious customer. Let me give you an example. Suppose I'm considering claw clips. I wouldn't simply say claw clips are cheap, so I will import them. I would investigate what designs are people buying. Are people buying single pieces or sets? What are similar products selling for locally? How many sellers are offering them? Can I make products look different? Can I make my own products look different from others? Could I package them differently? Can I create content around them? Can I sell them to a specific group of customers? That is product research. Or maybe I'm considering phone stands. Again, I'm asking, what type? Is it foldable? Is it adjustable? Does it fit different phones? Is it strong enough? What are the competing sellers charging? How much will mine actually cost after shipping? That same thing applies to hair accessories, jewelries, small organizers, makeup tools, and other lightweight products. The category is not enough. You have to investigate the specific products. Don't confuse demand with hype. There's another mistake I want you to avoid. Someone posts a video saying, guys, this product is selling like crazy. You see it and then you immediately go to a Chinese marketplace, you order it. Then when your products arrive, you discover that everybody else has already moved on to another product. This is why I don't like the idea of blindly following winning products. A product can be popular and still be a bad choice for you. Maybe the market is already overcrowded. Maybe the selling price has dropped. Maybe the shipping makes the margin too small. Maybe your particular audience doesn't even want it. Maybe you don't even know how to market it. So before I order, I want to answer, who is buying this? Where are they buying it? How much are they paying? How many people are already selling it? What complaints do customers have? What can I do better? These questions are more important than somebody telling me this product is hot. So if 50,000 naira is all I have, there are certain things I wouldn't do. I wouldn't spend every naira on inventory. I wouldn't order a huge quantity before testing the product. I wouldn't choose a product simply because the supplier price looks ridiculously cheap. I wouldn't choose something bulky without understanding how it will be shipped. And I definitely wouldn't copy someone else's business calculation, because you don't know their numbers. You don't know what they paid. You don't know their shipping costs. You don't know how their exchange rates. You don't know their customer base. And you don't know how long it took them to sell the stock. So their profit is not automatically your profit. Now, let us address that part that actually gets people's attention. Can I turn 50,000 naira into 100,000 naira in 1 week? Or how long do they even promise you? Well, possibly. But I wouldn't make that your expectation. And there is an important reason. 100,000 naira in sales is not 100,000 naira profit. Let us say your total business cost is 50,000 naira. You eventually sell your product for 100,000 naira. That means your revenue is 100,000 naira. It does not automatically mean you made 100,000 naira profit. If your total relevant cost was 50,000 naira, then your gross profit before other expenses would be 100,000 naira minus 50,000 naira, which is going to give you 50,000 naira, right? That's completely different. And even that calculation depends on whether you've included all the relevant costs. So whenever you see somebody post, made 200,000 naira from this product, don't immediately assume they made 200,000 naira profit. Ask, was that the revenue or profit? That is one question that will save you from a whole lot of confusion. Okay, let's talk about something people don't always mention. What if your products don't sell? What if your product doesn't actually sell? This is why I keep coming back to testing. Because your first order is not supposed to prove that you are a genius entrepreneur. It is supposed to give you information. Maybe you discover that the product itself is good, but your price is too high. Maybe your pictures are not attractive enough. Maybe you're selling to the wrong audience. Maybe customers prefer another color. Maybe people like the product but don't trust a new seller yet. Maybe the product simply is not even in demand. Those are all useful lessons. The goal is to make sure that learning those lessons doesn't cost you an amount of money you can't recover from. That's why I prefer small tests, feedback, improvements, and bigger order rather than big order, hope, and panic. What can 50,000 naira actually buy you? So if you ask me, Oluwaseun, is 50,000 naira enough to start? My answer is it can be enough to begin testing, depending on the product, sourcing arrangements, and logistics. But I would not tell you that 50,000 naira guarantees a profitable importation business. What 50,000 naira can potentially buy you is something much more important. Your first practical experience. You learn how sourcing works. You learn how to communicate with suppliers or agents. You learn how shipping works. You learn how to calculate your cost. You learn how customers respond. You learn how to price. And if your first product works, you now have something to build on. That is a much more realistic way to look at small capital. And there's one thing I want you to check before you order. Before you pay for your first order, I want you to write down these numbers. Number one, product cost. Exactly how much are you paying for the quantity you want? Number two, shipping. What is your current shipping arrangement and what exactly does the quoted price cover? Don't just hear it is this amount per kilogram. Ask what is included. Number three, other costs. Are there sourcing, payments, local delivery, packaging, or other applicable expenses? Number four, selling price. What can you realistically charge? Not that what you wish you could charge. What are your customers actually paying? Number 5, your expected profit. After calculating the relevant cost, is there enough margin to make the business worthwhile? If you don't know these numbers, I would pause before placing the order. My simple 50,000 strategy. If I had 50,000 naira today, this is the mindset that I'm going to use. I would not start with, how can I make the biggest profit possible? I would start with, how can I make the smartest first test possible? One product, a small quantity, a clear customer, a realistic selling price, a properly calculated landed cost, a current shipping cost, and enough money left to actually operate after the goods arrive. Then I sell. I collect feedback. I calculate what actually happened. If the numbers made sense, I would reinvest. If they don't, I will find out why before putting more money into the same product. That is business. So, can you start mini importation with 50,000 naira? Yes, it can be possible to begin on that kind of small scale, but I want you to understand what that statement does not mean. It doesn't mean you should spend the entire 50,000 naira on products. It doesn't mean every cheap product from China is a good product to import. And it definitely doesn't mean somebody can promise you that your 50,000 naira will become 100,000 naira or 200,000 by a particular date. What matters is what you do with the money. If you have small capital, your first goal should be to reduce the cost of learning. Test, learn, sell, calculate, reinvest, and grow. Now, I want to hear from you. If you had 50,000 naira today, would you actually start mini importation, or would you save until you had more capital? Please comment 50,000 naira I'm starting, or I will save more. And if you want me to take this a step further, my next video is going to be very practical. I can take specific products from Chinese marketplace, look at the type of product, discuss what I would check before buying, explain the shipping consideration, and show you how I would decide whether the product is actually worth importing. So if you want that video, comment, analyze the product, and make sure you're subscribed, because we're going to be looking at importation from the perspective of someone who actually wants to build a sustainable business and not just a chase of screenshots of sales. I'll see you in my next one.